Good evening, and it gives me great pleasure to have Art Themen here today as my guest on My Life in Music. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for asking me to.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Did you want to do some playing first, or did you want to do some talking?
Come to you, honestly, you're the boss. So, I don't mind. We'll see. You say.
Let's ease in with the song then. Let's ease in with the tune. Okay.
Should we do that ballad that we rehearsed assiduously for the last 6 hours, just in the hope that I might get it right this time. Okay, this is Mal Walden's Soul Eyes. Yeah. Bit of collar voce for the first half.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah?
Sounds good.
Dry reed.
Clicks. So we've had a few problems with the internet here at this venue a couple of times on the last live stream. So we can only do what we can do. I'm actually recording it on the desk, and I'm recording it on another separate camera in case this doesn't work out tonight, so I can upload it tomorrow. The stream's saying excellent at the moment, so hopefully it's going to be okay going forwards. But
I'm lost in admiration, actually. I'm total numpty at this business, so you're amazing.
Okay, so just turn your mic up. If you need any more level on anything, just again put it in the comments. I can turn things up and down depending on who's talking, I guess. So, okay, so what's your family history, Art?
How long have you got?
Okay. Well, as long as it takes.
Yeah. It's a bit piebald. Actually, only yesterday, my adorable next door neighbour, she sort of happened to sort of slip into the conversation the word mongrel, and I think it applies to me because it's basically half English. The English half is fairly disparate because it's Cornwall and Manchester and Newcastle.
Oh, okay.
My mother was actually later in life. She lived to be 100, and she was pretty good actually. But she wobbled off towards the end, and she pretended that she wasn't actually born in Newcastle, but she was born in Durham because that was posher. Oh. But anyway, sort of the English bit's a bit mixed, but the other bit is very mixed because I'm trying to keep it simple. If you divide me into 5, it's Suriname, which is the bottom of Venezuela, top of Brazil, South America, top right hand of South America. Oh, if you divide me into 5, I'm kind of African slave, Portuguese, Dutch, and Chinese. There's a sort of Chinese element.
Wow.
So there we are.
So
I said, how long have you got?
Is that do you like playing in 5/4 for that particular reason?
Actually, yeah, it's the biggest request, isn't it? If you're playing to a non-jazz audience, as I have been during lockdown,
right,
the request is always, can you play take 5?
So you've been giving that a good bit of practice then, that song. Yeah.
No, what you say is, Dave Brubeck, it's a Dave Brubeck tune. He doesn't play any of our stuff, so why should I play any of his?
Very good answer. Yeah, that's only fair, isn't it?
Yep.
Funny thing, a story about Dave Brubeck actually, because we did a concert here on Sunday, and there's a lady that lives in Shepperton, which is only down the road, who used to be Dave Brubeck's secretary.
Wow.
And we did one of those themed jazz events here. I think it's about 4 years ago now, and we had a lovely alto player called Alison Neal.
Yeah.
And so we did a Brubeck evening, and she, is very good at playing Paul Desmond stuff. Mm-hmm. And she'd seen this online somewhere advertised, so she gave us a call and said, "You come to the house because I've got so much vinyl and all these photos." And she said that she used to take turns her and Dave Brubeck's wife used to take turns going to the concerts. The other one would stay home with the kids, and then the other one would go to the concert.
That's great.
Yeah, so
good story.
Yeah, it's a great, nice. So I think she was in South Africa for a time, and so she knows the boys like Darius. Well, boys are old men now, aren't they? Darius and the like. And but she was really happy that there was a Brubeck connection going on. Yeah.
The other link is you've got Dave O'Higgins coming up, and he of course plays with the current.
Exactly. Sort of, I did mention that to her. So I think she actually, like a really good audience member, bought her ticket for next month today, or was trying to. So that's great. Yeah. Brilliant. So how did you get into music? What's your earliest kind of musical memory? You know, before you started playing, was did you always have music as a thing that you
I don't know quite how it happened. I think indulgent uncles would, I had a facility for playing tin whistles, so I got more and more sophisticated tin whistles until the age of 10, and then finally made the breakthrough. And my mother bought me a clarinet. And do you want the sob story? Because it's a sob story, and it's true. You don't want to tug at your heartstrings, but we were quite poor actually. We were so poor, Father used to come home and sort of cleave us into with an axe. But so she bought me a rather cheap clarinet, and it was actually a simple system. And if you know about clarinets stopped playing the simple system after Theodore Boehm invented the fingering for the flute, and then the sort of clarinet sort of followed. So simple system was, nobody ever played it apart from the very early New Orleans clarinetists. And not only that, the worst bit is that, again, page 3 of the tutor book was missing. So I had the mouthpiece on upside down. So at the age of 10 or 11, I was making these terrible squeaks and gave up. So that's how it was not very good.
So you went straight in with a kind of like a wind or reed instrument, as it were. Yeah.
Unlike you did it properly. I've always done it by the seat of my pants.
Yeah, well, I think that's the same as me. Actually, I think we're in the same boat. So it was, and then so the saxophone. How did the saxophone come along then? From the clarinet to
I gave up aged 11, and then I don't know quite how it happened. I think the popular music at the time, it wasn't pop songs, it was jazz. And what was popular, particularly in the north of England, in Manchester, was traditional jazz. And it was the time's popularity of the 3 Bs, Barber, Ball and Bilk.
Oh, okay.
And so I would listen to them, and I thought, that's really got something. So I decided that I'd by then realised that it was a crap. Am I allowed to say that?
You can say that, yeah.
Crap clarinet. So I got myself a clarinet and imitated the early British players, particularly Monty Sunshine, who's my hero. Monty Sunshine was Chris Barber's clarinet player.
Right. So you used to be a orthopedic surgeon, is that right?
Yeah.
So how did when it came to a career choice, as it were, did you ever just think, I might do music as a career, or were you always going to go into medicine?
I'm not sure if I can really analyse it, because it sounds almost sort of over the top to say it. I was in a way married to both,
right? And
so it wasn't that I feel I can do both, but the way it worked out medically, I was in a kind of specialty that wasn't particularly hot. I wasn't sort of doing brain tumours or anything like that. It was very unglamorous sort of limb surgery and spine surgery, very cold light of day sort of stuff. So that did leave time for music, and I don't think that many people play 6 nights a week, apart from Alan Barnes. Are you up there, Alan? But playing 3 or 4 nights a week, you could cope with that. And also medically, I had very, very understanding colleagues. When I started as my own boss, as it were, as a consultant, my 2 colleagues were very understanding. And I remember going to South America for, I think, 6 weeks, and to the Middle East for 5 weeks with Stan Tracy. And okay, I rolled up my sleeves and paid them back in terms of emergency duties, but it worked out okay.
Great. So you never had a conflict of thinking, if I know you played with some touring musicians as well, or in fact in this, from Americans or even people in this country. Once you started to get to the top of the tree, as it were, and play with the best players in London at Ronnie Scott's and etc. Did you, when those guys wanted to do, say, like even a UK tour or a European tour or something like that, did you manage to work your schedule around it, or did it conflict?
Yeah, I managed to schedule around it. I mean, the two things I quoted, those two tours, were quite a long time ago, and the way the dice fell, I didn't have any sort of 5-week opportunities, and I suppose if I had, I would still have been able to do it, because in later years there were 3 of us in where I worked, and I think now there are 23 of us. Don't get me onto the way the health service works,
right.
But it would have been easier still, actually. So it wasn't really a conflict. No, it wasn't. It sort of they grew together. But at the same time, there are sacrifices, and I think probably, I wasn't particularly a bad father, because if I'd come back home from the day job at 7:30, the kids were more or less going to bed, right. And if I was playing 3 nights a week, I didn't see them at all. So there's that was the conflict. But hand on heart, sorry, children. Had I had my time over again, they know already, I would have done exactly the same thing.
Right, yeah. I guess there's only so many hours in the day, isn't there, from if you're working and doing music and etc. Yeah.
I wish I'd gone to music school. I really do. And in fact, I did try, because the medical course is divided into the first 3 years where you don't see patients, and then the second 2 or 3 years. And the first 3 years, if you were clever enough, you could do an extra subject. So at the end of my second year, I said, here I am, I'd quite like to do music. Bearing in mind that it was actually way before the scales fell from music colleges' eyes and they had jazz courses. But nevertheless, I would have liked to have done music, even if it were classical music, in my 3rd year. But they took one look at my previous results and quite rightly said, Art, Themen, rather. Themen, you're not clever enough. And it was probably right. It's probably right.
Wow.
So I failed to do a sort of proper music course. So my reading is always hazy, and as I've said earlier, it's too much, for my liking, too much flying by the seat of one's pants.
Right. And did that inhibit you in any way when you kind of... The thing with jazz is it's difficult, isn't it? Because as a soloist, and your personality is there, and people like to hear you because you've got something to say, and you're you're almost like not a character, but a personality. Do you know what I mean? And then there's playing in sections and being very competent at playing with others and playing music that's anybody. You could just be anybody, and they just replace you, like in a show or something, and you could be just a saxophone 2 or something. Which is great to go. It's nice to be a frontline headline artist, isn't it? As a vocalist as well.
Actually, modesty forbids. I do what I do, but I have played in sections, and I think you were getting round to how do I feel about playing in sections. Well, playing with 110% committed jazz players like Peter King, for example, in a saxophone section.
Right.
I knew that he, like me, probably couldn't read. Can I be slightly off the wall here? And there's a sort of standard joke about if there's a stave of music with sort of nothing written on it, and we're a fly to crawl across it and defecate, then proper musicians could read it. They can read fly shit.
Yeah.
But Peter, God rest his soul, as he's just passed. Peter and I couldn't read fly shit, but nevertheless, sitting next to Alan Barnes or Dave O'Higgins or Simon Allen have been to music school and could, it is a little intimidating because you know that you're a fraction behind.
Right. Yeah.
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 So there's a slight difficulty, but because most of nobody does big bands anymore anyway. Actually, or there are very few. But I have felt from time to time I've felt uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same when I do this gig as well. Sometimes we don't have rehearsals and things, and somebody wants to do something that's a bit difficult, or it's always nice to have a look at something, isn't it?
Well, it's a good job we did 6 hours before, isn't it? Because we're note perfect, by the way. We'll be note perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
We joke. We just I arrived at 7 o'clock. Terry's sort of sorting out the things. We'll get there.
Yeah. Should we do some more playing?
Whatever.
Yeah. Should we do that? What do you fancy?
What was that thing I sort of played on the soprano, which I don't know why? That John Lewis.
Oh yes, Afternoon in Paris.
Yeah.
Should we do that?
Not played it for years, but let's hope it works.
That's all right. That's okay. Again, just to reiterate, if the internet feed is intermittent or not good, it will be recorded, and I can put something up tomorrow. And even you can have a podcast of the audio, because the audio is going recorded straight off the desk, so all the quality conversation is all getting recorded for posterity somewhere.
Close enough for jazz.
How fast do you want to do it?
Sorry about the flattened fifth.
That's all right. It's okay. It's great.
Or is it an augmented 13th?
Seems to be all good. Fingers crossed. Yeah, so you last year celebrated a big birthday, did you not?
Great, so.
What's the secret? What's the secret looking so good?
Come on. Can I quote Ronnie yet again? There's only one way to keep looking young. Sorry about this, and that's to hang around with old people. Sorry, but no, my mother lived to be 100 years and 6 months. So, but yeah, the other side of the coin is my poor old dad died at 46. So you
don't know who you're going to take after.
Yeah, the luck of the draw, isn't it? No.
And if being a doctor, do you live a really healthy lifestyle? Do you practice what you preach, as it were?
Well, I went to the pub just before we started. Sank about 6 pints and shot up.
Medicinal purposes, though, wasn't it?
No, it's. I think you have got to look after yourself a bit. But I don't consciously. I don't keep fit or anything.
Don't do any exercise, or apart, maybe just walking or something. Just general. Yeah, your general life keeps you.
Actually, since lockdown, for the first time ever, I've done only 5 minutes of a static rowing machine since March, since April rather. That's the only exercise I've ever done in my life. Wow. But just 5 minutes.
So there you go, folks.
But it just stops you getting breathless, because it gets a bit drafty at the top, when you're 80. There we are.
Interesting stuff. My grandmother lived to, I think she was 97 on my dad's side.
That's pretty good.
So that's pretty good.
Come on, you're looking pretty good yourself. I may return the compliment.
Yeah, exactly. But then I think on my mum's side, she's probably watching, but her parents died, in the 60s. I think the 60s or 70s. I think so. But you just never know, do you?
No, it's the luck of the draw, and especially nowadays.
So how have you been coping with the whole kind of COVID kind of lack of?
Actually, it would, thanks to, I think, George Double. I think he's got to get a mention, because George Double is a drummer I work with. He's based in Norfolk, and he's like yourself. He's a kind of mover and shaker and bundle of energy, and he's got into.
He plays a lot with Chris Ingham, is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, he's largely responsible. We had a tour booked, and it would have been my busiest year. And I got back from France. I had to get out of France, because it was, they said, get out within 24 hours, otherwise you're
going to be locked down.
Yeah,
because the lockdown in France was obviously quick before.
Yeah. Anyway, I got back in mid-March, and then the way I've kept going is, I'm not sure this is should be public, but I played in my lane. I played 3 tunes a day in my lane 6 days a week for about 6 months. I've cut it down to 2, and I think it's run its course actually now. But there were a couple of jazz tunes, but as you can imagine, the place where I live in Henley-on-Thames, and it's hardly known for its jazz fraternity. So as a sop, I used to call it a sop actually, I'd play something that was probably more accessible.
Right.
But don't tell anybody.
You sold out.
I sold out. Actually, it's something I didn't know. You learn something all the time. If you get onto Spotify and do, dare I say the word karaoke, you can get the backing track to Acker's "Stranger on the Shore."
Oh, okay.
So I dusted off the clarinet. Actually, I've got a clarinet anecdote if you want. I dusted off the clarinet, and anyway, I played, the backing track, proper, it's a "Stranger on the Shore," but, it wasn't really my bag. Maybe it would have been when I was 16. But the clarinet thing is, I mentioned Alan Barnes before. He's a chap I respect very much, deservedly very busy, got a keen sense of humour, and he asked me to do a gig with him, and he said that there's a clarinet part. I was just doing a dep for somebody. And there's a clarinet part, so I brought along my clarinet, and it was the original clarinet I bought when I was 16,
right?
The first one, and it wasn't a wooden one, which clarinets are supposed to be. It was ebonite, I think it was called. It's a bit like wearing sort of terylene underpants. You don't make a clarinet out of ebonite these days. But the ebonite had become a little bit yellow at the bottom end, and Alan took one look at this. He said, it was a bit funny, how much did you pay for it? I said 16 quid. He said, you were robbed. And then at the end of the tune we played, he said, he made an announcement to the audience, and he said, Art Themen's clarinet, I think that it was dug out of a trench in the First World War after the Battle of the Somme, when there was a mustard gas attack, which was, as typical of Alan, but anyway.
He's very quick, isn't he?
He's very quick.
He's very quick.
I've still got the clarinet, and sorry, Alan, I'm still going to play it from time to time.
It was great when I think we played here at our Christmas gig. It was the one you did, our Christmas one here. You played last Christmas, and one of his jokes just really made me chuckle was when he got his clarinet out. He says, "Sunday's my day of practicing the clarinet." It was funny. He's such a not only such a great player, but it's just so quick-witted, isn't it? Yeah, great. I'm really flying through my list of questions here.
No, it's okay. I hope I'm not not boring you.
No, not at all. I'm just going to check. See if I'm just going to check the comments. If there's any questions that have come in that people might want to ask.
Should I do a bit of background?
Janet says, "Can't believe he's 80. Amazing."
Yeah.
No questions, I don't think, at the moment. No, look at that. I think most of the chat on the YouTube is about the quality of the stream.
I'll tell you about the blues part of my life, if you like.
Yeah, because I did look up you on Wikipedia a few months back.
That's the photograph where I look like Alf Garnett.
Yes, there is one, isn't there?
Yeah.
And and there was a bit of you, going into doing a lot with the kind of prominent blues bands at the time or something.
Yeah. That was courtesy of the aforementioned Dick Hextall-Smith, who, when he left Cambridge, he went to play with Alexis Corner's Blues Incorporated, which was it was a blues band, but it was kind of anarchic, Charlie Mingus type band. It was jazz but blues, and it had people like Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker in it, Graham Bond.
Oh wow, yeah.
So it was really a jazz band, but they very feisty, sort of off the wall blues playing. And Jack and Ginger and anyway, they left, and Dick Hextall got me into the band, which was very, very nice of him. So I was in that band for about just over a year. So they were heady days. I was still a student then, so I wasn't a very good student because there was a bit of conflict there because it was quite a busy band. We'd go up to Manchester and further places. It was really.
So you grew up in the northeast. When did you come to?
No, the northwest.
The northwest.
Manchester. Yeah.
Right.
My mother's northeast.
Right. So how did you get? When did you come to London? Did you study medicine in London, or did you?
I did from Manchester. My mother wanted me to study medicine in Manchester, but I needed to cut the umbilical cord, so I got into Cambridge, and that was the first 3 years doing the non-patient side, and then you've got the choice of doing the patient bit anywhere you like, and the obvious place for me was London, so
right.
I went to St Mary's. So that's where I was in Paddington then, which is when Dick sort of got me into the blues band.
Because what was the famous Jack Bruce was in the Cream, wasn't he? He was in Cream, and Ginger Baker. I know he ran his own bands. Was he in a?
Yeah, they were. It was Jack Bruce, Ginger Baker, and anybody out there who'd. Famous guitar player Eric Clapton.
Eric Clapton. That was Cream.
That was Cream.
So this is pre-Cream days, is it? Or
yeah, pre-Cream.
time,
Yeah.
Right.
But Jack Bruce had for a short time, a very short time actually. He hired and fired, like crazy. I think it was 10 gigs. But the Jack Bruce band actually, we sort of did a tour of Germany and all that sort of thing. And the money was, compared with jazz money, was just that I remember I bought a car. I bought a car on the 6 gigs actually, a Ford Cortina Mark III.
Wow.
But before that, actually, after Alexis's band, I was still on the sort of fringe of these funny, not funny, serious sort of blues people, and I got into Long John Baldry's band, and I'm not quite sure if this should be public either, but don't tell anybody, but it was Long John Baldry and the Hoochie Coochie Men.
Oh,
So
right.
I was a Hoochie Coochie Man, but that was also a jazz band because the rhythm section, if one's allowed to say rhythm section in these days, democratic days, was Ian Armitt on piano, Eddie Taylor on drums, and Pete Blannin, and they were Humphrey Littleton's rhythm section. So
Right.
it was a jazz band.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really a jazz band because the second singer after Long John Baldry was Rod Stewart.
Oh.
So it was a blues band, but with different connotations.
I used to work with a soul singer called Jimmy James and the Vagabonds. I don't know if you remember. And he came over from Jamaica in the 50s, I think. And the music he first started playing was they don't need that. Was kind of Jamaican ska, I think it was, and all that. Yeah. And I think his band, the original Vagabonds, end up being stolen by Rod Stewart to become the Small Faces or the New Faces.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
he was paying more than Jimmy, and they left him and went with him.
Yeah. Figures.
Yeah, and I guess probably in the 50s and 60s were a lot of jazz musicians doing both, doing
I
kind
think
of
so,
jazz
yeah.
gigs and then doing kind of more popular things.
I think so. I got, for some reason, I did a session with Joe Cocker.
Oh wow!
I never actually met him, but it was that famous studio in Barnes, the Olympic Studio, and we did the backing track. That was with Dick Hexel-Smith, Henry Lowther, another out-and-out jazz player. Chris Spedding was the sort of blues, the guitar hero, sort of pelvis thrust forwards into the footlights,
Right.
wind machine blowing his hair,
Yeah.
all that sort of business. But that was with a little help from my friends. It was a great pop record.
Yeah,
made number
yes,
one. But
yeah.
I got 15 guineas as I
Did
recall.
you get any PPL for that at all? No.
No, nothing like
just
that.
Yeah.
No, the famous jazz rip-off was nothing to do with me, of course. Was A Whiter Shade of Pale,
Right.
where the drummer didn't know a crotchet from a hatchet, and they got Bill Iden to play the drums, and he got his customary 15 guineas, but appealed, and I think he finally got $3,000. But such is the nature of music. As we're speaking, The Whiter Shade of Pale has been played
Somewhere.
15 times around the world.
Yeah.
And there's a farthing for each time, so it's just mind blowing. The sort of money involved.
I think Bach probably it's probably like put a claim in as well there somewhere.
Yeah,
that kind of sounds very kind of baroque, doesn't it? In places.
Yeah.
Great. So how did you get into kind of playing at Ronnie's and those sort of gigs? I'd love to know the history of how you kind of ended up going to Ronnie Scott's and playing.
I think you know one sort of hovers around the fringe, and then I think the main a particularly important step forward was courtesy of Jimmy Hastings, who is, I think Jimmy and I are the oldest sort of active living jazz saxophone players in the UK. He's older than I am. He doesn't look it. He looks much younger than me. I hope you're out there, Jimmy. But he's a gentleman. He's lovely. And we played in, I don't know quite, obviously by then I managed to get into Stan Tracy's big band, and he was being a better reader and better player and better everything. I was on second tenor, and he encouraged me to say, "Come on, there's a first tenor solo here. You do it." And he was really very generous about that.
Great.
And then as a result, I think that Stan kind of took a shine, and he took a shine to Don Weller as well. And the rest is history. We played together, Don and I and Stan, for years and years in various bands, from trios to quartets to quintets. But that as a result of that connection, you get booked elsewhere as well.
That opened loads of new doors and things.
Yeah.
And we were talking just before we started about Simon Allen.
Yeah.
Because Simon Allen
took over from me actually instead.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Deservedly so, actually. He's, I think Gerard.
I think we've got a helicopter going over. That is so loud.
Yeah.
I think that's a Chinook helicopter.
Yeah, they discovered your sort of illegal broadcasting.
That's it. Yeah.
They're going to burst
jazz
in.
Police, yeah.
The SWAT team are going to burst in now.
Because he's from the same kind of neck of the woods as you.
Yeah. Simon, he's a lovely chap, a lovely player as well. His father is an anaesthetist, and as it happens, we work together. Not all that frequently, but Steve Allen, Simon's father, is a lovely chap, and we did the occasional case together.
Great. And the only reason I know his father was a doctor is because when we did our concert in what we know September, I think it was. Somebody called Dr. Allen bought a ticket for the live stream.
Yeah, that's right. That would be Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, great. And he speaks highly of you, and so that's the Maidenhead connection.
Well, we played at Maidenhead.
Reading,
I think Steve Simon rather was in the Maidenhead big band. Pat Kelly was the leader. He's again recently passed. It's been a bad year actually for people going. I forget the name of the band. It was originally the Berkshire Youth Jazz Orchestra, and then it became Pendulum. I remember when it was the Berkshire Youth Orchestra, and I dare say that my good friend in Henley will be watching this, but Andy Crowdy was in the Berkshire Youth Orchestra, and I think by then he was no longer in short pants. I think had grown a beard. He was the oldest youth I've ever seen. Sorry, Andy, but
is there a limit where you have to show your ID?
Yeah.
So you're not.
I think that's why it became Pendulum. Actually.
Yeah. So then becoming a recording artist and doing your own band, your own quartet. How did you end up, and who did you choose to do your first recordings? And
it's serendipity. It's people that you've played with over the years. I think in particular Critch, with Ronnie Scott passing, God, what a cloud I'm casting over this broadcast, and Stan as well. We were both found ourselves playing together frequently, and then we played regularly at the Bull's Head Barns for years.
Because you had a residency there, playing once a month.
I still do. I've played there until COVID. I played there probably. There was one week I think I played there every night.
Oh, wow.
But for the last 40 years I've played the third Wednesday of every month. Be there or be square. Yeah. And it still goes on. Hopefully it will go on when they resume. But John and I had quartet there for years, but we recorded a few things, not very many. And then now and again you get the opportunity to say, a promoter will say, can you do such and such a festival? I remember actually, I think it was Southport, and he said, I'd like you to do a quintet, and who would you like? I said, John, and he said, oh, I like such and such as person's playing. So he more or less chose the band, which was fine. But then, I actually chose a band with Steve Fishwick and Gareth Williams and Arnie Summergy.
Oh, great players. Yeah.
Winston Clifford.
Oh, great. Yeah.
And there's another one coming out with Dave Barry actually, and also with George Double, who has done very well. It's something. This sounds a bit like advertising, but I don't mean it this way. But George has produced a trio album with Pete Whitaker. It's called Thane and the Villains, which is a kind of medieval joke. But
right.
That's done okay. But
Great.
I've not done very much recording.
No.
And who has? Alan has, but
Yeah. And that's duo CD that you gave me last time we played together. That was really nice.
Yeah, that's Steve. Yeah, Steve Melling is again a wonderful player.
But he used to play with Peter King.
That's right. I was just going to say, Peter, he grew out very much out of the Charlie Parker sort of style of playing, but later on he got more and more modern and got into Coltrane, and I think Steve played with him because he was very much part of the McCoy Tyner sort of piano playing. But yes,
and I noticed that in some of your playing and your influences, again from what I read on Wikipedia, that you were very influenced by Rollins and Coltrane.
And Dexter.
Dexter. Yeah.
I think it's an amalgam. You just assimilate. You're like a sponge, and inevitably you can't sound like anybody else. You've got to sound. You can't be a copyist.
No.
Okay, I still remember Monty Sunshine's solo, but I don't think I'd ever played it in public now. But you amalgamate various influences, but inevitably, even without a sort of theoretical knowledge, you're born with ears and you listen and you begin to assimilate some of their
the stuff you like goes in, doesn't it? And it's like when you absorb it, and and of course, living in the moment and living in the time, you're influenced by the stuff that's going on, contemporary stuff, which is always happening.
I met Rollins actually, which was quite a thing, because Stan took the quartet to India, and it was called, years and years ago, it was called Jazz Yatra, and it was an amalgam of, I don't think we very much played together, although a few people did. I didn't play with Rollins, anything like that. He was obviously top of the bill. But I met him, and he was a charming chap, and I think he played with the likes of Ravi Shankar. It was And then I went to see him at one of the big venues, Festival Hall, about 2 years later, and I think as a measure of the man, I sort of went backstage just to say hello, and he opened the stage door and said, "Hello, Art," which is, it was, I don't mean this in an immodest sort of way. I didn't make a big impression. It's just the way that he actually he that's the way he behaves. He's a fantastic giant of a personality as well as a player.
And he doesn't play at the moment anymore.
That's it. I think the lungs finally sort of gave up, but I'm glad to say he's still with us.
Yeah, great. And he's still kind of, I don't know who does it. If there's always some sort of message sometimes comes out on Twitter or his Facebook page or something, or he's still communicating with everyone, which is great.
But one's got to listen to one. Sound like the Queen, don't you? But you've got to listen to everybody. So I would listen to Chris Potter and Joe Lovano, and hopefully something will sink in. But it's the very modern players are way beyond me, and the facile technique. I'm not an assiduous practicer, and I think you have to be. Pete, again, I keep coming back to Peter. He's fresh in my memory because I was at his funeral a fortnight ago. But Pete was an assiduous practicer, and I think the only way to get that good is to do it. But simply, I simply can't woodshed. I get bored.
Yeah.
I get bored playing long notes.
Right.
So, it's probably not a good advert to young saxophone players, because I know some people say, go away and play bottom B flat for half an hour, but I can't do that.
No. I mean, what would you say to, what advice would you have for, like, say teenagers now getting into the saxophone, and anything you can pass on, any words of wisdom, just
yeah. I honestly, I
do it.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like the old buffer. I think to any aspiring young saxophone player, be grateful that you're playing the saxophone, because this is not an immodest statement on my part. It is actually, it's an easy instrument. You press the button at the back and it goes up an octave, not like the clarinet, which goes up an octave and a half. So effectively, you're playing two instruments, and it's very logical. And B, it's cheap. If there was a GP friend of mine in Reading where I worked, and I saw him one day. I said, "Tony, how are you doing?" He said, "Well, good and bad. My daughter's just got into a string quartet." I said, "That's fantastic." He said, "Well, I've just had to buy her a proper cello." And it was 37 grand. Now that was something like 1970. So saxophone players, that's a second-hand Mark VI, 5 grand top whack. So it's easy to play and it's cheap. Okay, the serious stuff. I don't know. I think you have to play it every day. I might have a day off in a week where I don't play it, but I think in order to because it's not nearly as tricky in terms of embouchure as a brass instrument or even a flute. But I think in order to keep your muscles in trim, because an awful lot of, I remember all the names. What this little job here is called the levator labii superioris aliquae nasi. You've got to keep them all working. So you've got to play 6 days out of 7, I think. But it doesn't have to be forever. And when I was working, I get home and be, after the day job, and be a bit tired. And again, this may be heresy, but in order to keep playing, I didn't object to playing with play-alongs, because, it's still in your mouth and you're still actually playing. So if only for half an hour, if I got home after a late shift or something at 8:30, I'd still do 8:30 to 9 playing Jamie Abersold. Why not? I love you. So is that enough?
That's a great answer. Yeah. And do you think it changes as well? I mean, I was talking to Graham Flowers last month.
Yeah, well, I respect him very much. Yeah.
And he was saying that I asked the question: is there a limit? Is there a time limit when you can't play anymore? Is there an age limit that this
Hopefully
doesn't
not.
work anymore? No, and so it's not getting harder. It's not like, say, running 100 meters in 10 seconds or something. It doesn't get harder as you get older. It's just, if you maintain it, you can keep playing forever.
That's right. I think so, and I think I think one keeps improving. If you're still playing, something always rubs off from what you do. So if I felt that I was declining, I think I'd stop.
Right.
And I don't mean that immodestly. I think, well, I'm getting better now. It was Brian Spring. He said, Brian Spring, I love the quote. It's not a quote, but it's true. Brian Spring, I love him. He was, again, rather like Pete King, he practiced a lot. He used to practice on his knee because it would drive his neighbours crazy playing on a drum. So he had this great big sort of thickened skin on his
built up a callus on his leg.
So, but he'd approach you, and he'd approach inside your sort of personal space. And he said, "Did 36 hours practice yesterday, getting there." You don't have to do 36 hours practice every day, but practice helps.
Yeah. There was that funny quote that people started banding around a few years back or a few months back at the. I think it was 10,000 hours or something, and this was his magic number.
Yeah.
You have to, if you want to be good at anything, it's 10,000 hours. Yeah. Talking about I Love You, shall we give that a go?
Yeah. Okay. Great. Oh, it's got cold again. I think the heating's is fun, isn't it? Jazz has got to be fun.
Fantastic. Great. How are we doing? So, yeah, you live in France, or you have a property in France, or you what do you call someone who lives by something or other?
No, I don't. No, I have a bedsit in France, and it's lock up and leave. But it's
right.
It's it's nice to have, and there's a friend of mine, there's a relative who's has a house in France, and has just done it up, and for the first time he went to sort of live there, it had been trashed, so it's very awkward not having a sort of having a place that is vulnerable. So
sure,
I've got a lock up and leave, and it's very modest. And
is it in the country? Is it on the coast?
It's on the coast.
Right. Oh, very nice.
It's in Antibes.
Oh,
which is
very nice.
It's just it's just the sound. I've always wanted a place in Antibes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it happened.
Brilliant. How long ago was that? Did you have a place before?
Yeah, about 20 years.
Right.
But one always thinks of Antibes as the jazz festival and all that, but don't believe a word of it. Okay, there is a jazz festival, and there's less and less jazz nowadays. I think Keith Jarrett is probably the only one. I think Keith Jarrett. No, that's not strictly true, but I think he's flown the flag of jazz, but it's got less and less over the years. So there's actually not a great deal of jazz in the south. I played with Michel Petrucciani's father, who plays
wow,
guitar.
he's a guitarist, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right. But there's very little going on. But I can cope without the jazz because I can come back here. But the food and the wine and all that sort of thing sort of doesn't quite make up for the lack of jazz.
And obviously we've got the really horrible deadline of, is it December the 31st or something, with the dreaded B word?
Yeah, the dreaded B word. I'm not a political animal, but it's rather overshadowed by the dreaded C word, isn't it?
Yeah,
yeah, it's going to happen. C'est la vie. That's life.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure if it's going to affect jazz all that much, but I think the thing that's going to affect jazz more than anything is UK, because this is a beef actually. It's a big gripe about the congestion charge, because anybody who plays in the West End now, and okay, I've had a day job, so I've got a clean diesel. I've got a Mini, which is a clean diesel. It's 4 years old, but most musicians have got a dirty diesel because we're all encouraged. So you now come in to do Ronnie Scott's for 120 quid or something, and you pay it. And if it's after midnight, you pay 2 days of congestion charge, parking, and pollution charge. So, yeah, that's my biggest political gripe right now.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And it's now. Before there was a little bit of. I think weekends. Weekends were okay, and bank holidays, and the 2 weeks.
It's now till 10 p.m. 10 p.m. You can.
I thought it was 24/7.
No, I think you can drive out after 10 p.m.
Right. Okay. So yeah, it's just not good. My sister's just asked, "What's the B word?" And someone has actually written in the B word.
Yeah. Has anybody?
Some questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Has anybody told us what the name of the soprano player? Sidney Bechet. Sidney Bechet. I'd claim my gin and tonic.
Good. Somebody said, Peter Gore asks, has Art any new CDs? We have got Trace Elements, The Tour Continues, and Kensal Road.
The Tour Continues. Yeah. Yeah, Thane and the Villains is the George Double one. Thane, T-H.
Oh, yep, John Taylor has written that here as well.
Yeah. And there's a mind you, it's still in the melting pot. I think Andrew Kleindert is producing it, because Andrew Kleindert has just had twins.
Right.
He's just had twins. So I think the melting pot is still melting at the moment. But that should come out soon. It's got Gareth Williams, Dave Barry, and Dave Green quartet. So
fantastic. I think that was the only one here. Yeah, that was just the one asking about the CDs. Yeah. So when will that be available, do you think?
I suspect the end of the year. I think Andy is still getting up 3 times a night for one of the twins. No, good luck to it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, great.
It's great.
Great. That's good. It's good that you're still churning out the CDs and things, isn't it?
Well, probably there's a bit more time now, but not really the opportunity to go into a studio, I suppose.
Do you write at all? Do you do any compositions at all?
No, I'm sort of one trick pony. I think that's an American expression, isn't it? But it's, I wish I wrote, but in a way, I think there are so many things written that you can actually get away with it. I think the prime example of the saxophone player who got away with it was Stan Getz. Right. He could play anybody's music like an angel. It's just a pity he wasn't an angel himself. But I wish I composed, but I say to myself, well, Stan Getz didn't compose.
Exactly. It's funny because some of the most creative improvisers don't compose on the paper or write it down. They can do it between, count the tune in, and they can do the really creative stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think the suggestion is that I'm creative, but I'm not so sure. I think it would be a good talent to
But it's the interpretation thing, isn't it? Again, it's being able to interpret other people's music, and it's different. It's a funny thing though, because obviously it's an improvised art form, so you are making it up and you are being creative. So you're composing in the moment, as it were. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, that's all right. That's what I say to myself. You don't really have to write music, aren't you? You're composing.
You're writing contrafacts in the moment.
Yeah, contrafact. Yes, that's a good word, isn't it?
That's a very good word, isn't it? I had to think about it then.
Yeah.
But should we do that 3/4 tune before your saxophone gets?
Yeah.
Cold?
I'll see the soprano will be well cold now, which will allow me to do my standard soprano joke.
Do you want to?
Well,
mute your mic.
It'll be flat. So. I'm not so sure if that is close enough for jazz. Not quite. Your tempo, actually. Frank Rossellino.
Yeah, what a lovely tune. Brilliant.
Frank Rossellino quote, that is. That was...
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
What's Art's advice to overcome creative or self-confidence block?
Oh. Yeah. Well, I'm hardly the sort of person who stands centre stage and beats his chest, so I think we've all got to cope with that. But be yourself. Practice. You know that you can always get better. It's an impossible question to answer, but there are many times when I feel intimidated. Playing with Salnistico out of the Woody Herman band. Blimey.
He did all those amazing arrangements, didn't he? He wrote that arrangement book as well.
No, I think that was Sammy Nistico.
Oh, two different people.
Yeah. Sal Nistico was the authentic big man, American big sound tenor player.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I felt this big. I felt, the speck of dust beneath his musical heel. But I don't know quite how I overcame. Yeah, you overcome it because it's not. People don't diss you. Throughout my musical life, I think there've been less than a handful of occasions where people have said, "Hey kid, this is the way it's done." It's happened once or twice, and it really hurt. But that's, if you think of the thousands of musicians I played with, it doesn't happen. And Sal Nistico was as nice as pie. He was lovely, and so I don't think you ever should feel belittled by the people that you're playing with. And as long as you do what you do, you take my advice and put it in your mouth every day, and keep up appearances. You're never going to be sort of asked to slink away in the corner and with a triangular cap with D on it. It doesn't happen.
No.
It's we're all. It's a fraternity. That's one of the lovely things about music in general, and I think about jazz in particular. I've probably not answered the question fully, but it's the best I can do. We're all buddies. It's Peter King, not the Peter King who used to run Ronnie Scott's, not the saxophone player, used to say, "It's we're all family. We're all family," and it's true.
Yeah. A couple more questions on here. Jim Trimmer asks, do you prefer blues and modal tunes or lots of chords?
I like a mixture. I like, it's a good question. I like, Coltrane did it all, didn't he?
Yeah.
He produced a blues album, and then he did an album which was completely sort of different, just modal, and then he'd do, at different times of his life, and then he'd do something totally freeform with Rashid Ali. But I think it's the beauty of the music is that you can enjoy everything. I did something recently, and people asked me what my choices were, and I started with Louis Armstrong's Potato Head Blues, and I ended with, not particularly modern actually, Joe Lovano playing Lonnie's Lament, which is, the way Coltrane plays it is fairly straight, but Lovano went out, hey man, he really sort of went really atonal, and I think you can enjoy both in the same thing. Armstrong playing Potato Head Blues on the stop chorus, heart-stopping. Joe Lovano going out on that tune, is equally heart-stopping for me.
Yeah.
So I like both.
Yeah, good answer. I think it's playing things with conviction, isn't it? It's just and Coltrane's a great example because he did things like 26-2 and Countdown and things like that. They had 100 chords in. Yeah. And then impressions or something completely free. Yeah. So and it's great that it's all viable, isn't it? It's all good stuff, isn't it? So
things are easier now as well in terms of practice because the iPad it's helpful in terms of you can take it up half a tone. You can, if you're really adventurous, you can do giant steps or 26/2, half a tone up for 12 choruses. But I've not got to that stage yet. I don't think I ever will. But it's there, which it didn't used to be 50 years ago.
No, yeah. I mean, it's the same. It's technology and modern living and everything. It's just different ways to get from A to B, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you look at historical composers and things, they still wrote the most complex music, but they had to get there via a different method. So I always find that interesting. Is life better today than it was 100 years ago? Who knows? That's the question. That's the philosophical question.
We're living a bit longer, aren't we? So but I'm not so
miserable
sure
for longer. We come up to 9 o'clock, so we'll probably wrap that up. So thank you very much for hanging in there, everyone. Thanks, Art, for your knowledge, your advice, your stories, and obviously your fantastic playing. So real pleasure for me for you to come and share that with me and everyone on YouTube.
Obviously, it's lovely of you. Okay, one final short speech, but heartfelt. I think that we're all very lucky because nobody's playing very much, and Terry Collie has got this thing together, so it's giving us all an opportunity to get out there, and also, I think that we're very lucky to have such a. This I don't want to sound patronising. Such a wonderful player, in such a young geezer. But anyway, thank you very much.
You can
Terry.
definitely come again.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks very much. So thank you very much, and see you all again next time. Thank you.